Hello, Grizzlies, and welcome back to another episode of Grizzly True Crime. My name is S.T.A.L.K.E, and today we welcome a very special guest back to the show. We've got criminal profiler John Kaylee with us. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so very much. I want to apologize to you. Well, I've apologized to you already, but I want to apologize to the audience about the cyclone bomb. I'm very sorry we had a cyclone bomb and it disrupted our last presentation. But I just think the audience deserves that. They're great Grizzlies, great people, you know. I'd also
Great
like
Grizzlies.
oh,
Nice.
great Grizzlies.
Yes.
There. And I'd like to put a shout out if it's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I want to shout out to Frank Adamson of our stock team and Dr. Eddie from our stock team. I mean, I've learned so much from these guys, and I mean, I've just I can't thank them enough for all they've taught me, and it's just amazing. What I've learned over the years, and I've been able to share with others.
Yes.
And I think they got a couple of tidbits from me as well. But really, I mean, one of the best psychologists, in the country, and definitely one of the best homicide investigators in the country with Frank Adamson. And I've just learned so much from him, especially about embellishing. But we'll talk about that. You go ahead. I'll follow your lead.
Oh, no, I'm just showing them in case they think you're all stalkers. What's the S.T.A.L.K. team? What does S.T.A.L.K. stand for again?
System to Apprehend Lethal Killers Incorporated.
Very nice. So you guys, if you want to learn more about John Kaylee and the S.T.A.L.K. team, go to johnkayleellc.com. As always, I will pin it in the timestamps and everything in the pinned comment for you afterwards. Okay, someone is saying no sound. I hope you guys are all okay. I hope you can hear things. Thank you. Welcome to all the new members. And thank you all for being here. Please do hit the thumbs up and share the video so other Grizzlies on Facebook or Twitter or wherever can know, oh, damn, she's live. And then they can come and join us over here. Okay. So this is the website, and the S.T.A.L.K. team is who you're giving a shout out to. And that was great.
And there's one other person I'd like to give a shout out to, the captain. He has a good show on now, the Ghost Stories of Christmas. I found it to be very interesting on the fraudulent people who take advantage of the families of the victims. And
yes.
I truly appreciate the captain doing a show like this. I think this type of show needed to be done to square people away on the families and how people can take advantage.
Right? I worry sometimes with the amounts of, say now, GoFundMe's popping up now in this Idaho case. You just don't know, well, which ones are the families starting? And it normally will say they're the beneficiary or so, but I do see a bit of a trend of new ones popping up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that really sucks. Is that the captain, like the Captain Howdy, the Delphi guy? They're talking about Delphi?
Yeah, Captain Howdy, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so today, guys, we're talking about embellishing. What is embellishing? That's a good place to start.
Well, embellishing is really, I believe, just becoming too concerned or over obsessed, if you will, with a particular person of interest. We use it all the time, when we're trying to eliminate people. Now, keep in mind, eliminate is pretty much the same thing as cleared. So people can understand that, the audience can understand that. So what we try not to do is embellish. Now, you have to understand, for a younger John Kaylee coming into this field, I mean, looking at this, looking at that. Oh, that might be him. That's him over there. He could be him over here. Let's look at what he did over here. Let's look at what he did over there. How about over here, right? Could he be? Could he? Would he? Shoulda? Coulda? He said, they
or
said.
100% certain that it.
Yeah.
Not even coulda, woulda. On YouTube these days, you see this one is definitely the killer. Wow.
That's definitely the killer, right, on YouTube, right?
Right.
So what Frank taught me early on, he said, listen, the best way to do this And he said, I've taught all my detectives at this. He was the commander of Detectives Green River, right? All the detectives in Kent County. And he said, let's go and try to prove the guy innocent. I said, what? Yeah, let's try and prove him innocent. Because if he's innocent, fine, he's not the guy. However, if you try to eliminate him and you cannot eliminate him, okay, then the case is only going to get better. And what I have found out, if you focus on it that way, go out to prove the guy innocent, go out to eliminate him. But if you can't eliminate him, you will automatically see that it will start to get better. And because he's guilty, right? Or pretty much around the guilty person or a major, major person of interest. Now, keep in mind, too, with the usual suspects, some of those you cannot eliminate. Some of those you can't clear. Same thing, right? And you can go down the stretch, okay? Like in Delphi with a bunch of people that are possibles that you can't.
Not once did they name Richard. In
Right,
all of
right.
that
And
Delphi speculation.
not one with the name Richard. So, but it's easier to try and eliminate, and as you're in that process, if he's the guilty party or coming down the final stretch to the usual suspects, the case will only get stronger. You won't be able to eliminate him. You'll not be able to eliminate him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a nice way to think about it. Instead of like, oh, this one is so sus, this one is so red flag, this one is so this and this, but like, okay, if you think about it the way that you say it, like, as you said, let's try to eliminate him. Let's try to think of this person as innocent. And if you can't think of that, interesting. So
You
did you
know,
see the thumbnail I made for you? Look at all the fingers pointing here, here, here,
yeah.
here, here.
There's a
Murphy did
finger.
it,
There's a
right?
finger. Murphy did it. Yeah,
Right?
there you are. Poor
Oh
Murphy.
man.
Oh
Yeah.
man, look at him. There's that boy.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that puss. Boy, that is. Oh man, poor Murphy.
Yeah.
What happens in the immolation in the embellishment process as well is the ego. The ego is
Yes.
your enemy in the embellishment process because really nobody likes being wrong. You know, people want to be right. They don't like to be wrong. And what happens is when you start embellishing and you become obsessed, that runs in conflict with your ego if you can't be wrong. So what happens is you try and put a square peg in a round hole because this is your guy. You've come up with him and you're really obsessed with him. And then what happens lots of times too is that you're dealing with your own internal critic. You do not want to believe you can be wrong or you're wrong, so you want to be right, and because you're scared of you dummy, you fool, you dumb, you made a mistake, you're stupid going on in your head. You don't want to put up with that. So you want to make this guy right. You want to make this guy fit, and
Yeah.
that's at this is the starting point of the embellishment with the ego. Do you have something you want to say, or do you want me to continue with
Oh no,
this?
no, please continue. Please continue. I'm loving it.
Okay, so now you can't be wrong personally, and you don't want to get your internal critic going on you in your head, right? We
Mm-hmm.
call it the little BSer in your head, if you will.
The little
So,
BSer. Write that down, everyone. We've got nut butt, nanny goat, and the little BSer so far.
nut butter,
The
nut
John
butter.
Kelly lingo.
So then you're so sure this is the guy you've embellished him. And guess what you're going to do? You're going to start to tell other people, this is the guy. I know this is the guy. You're going to be in chat rooms. This is the guy. I'm sure this is the guy. As you mentioned earlier, I'm convinced this is the guy.
100%.
100%. He's guilty. Okay. Well, now you've really drawn yourself in because now you're not only dealing with your internal critic, but now you're concerned about your friends that you've gone out on a limb with obsessing over this guy and calling this guy, now this is important, calling this guy a murderer of maybe children or of 4 people or whatever, right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
saying this guy's the guy, he's the murderer, right?
Hmm.
So now you start to tell your colleagues along with your friends at work and everything, right? So now the ante's gotten higher. You really got a lot invested in this guy being the guy, right? Certainly now, whoa, if I'm wrong here, poof, look at all I've got invested. I got my ego invested. My friends are listening to me all the time. Now the people at work are listening to me. So you really get yourself, pushed into a corner, okay, because
Hmm.
of this embellishing and this obsession, right?
Yeah.
So now you start to get some fear if they're not solving the case right away and this guy isn't getting arrested right away, because then you start to think, well, I'm starting to feel a little anxiety. Maybe I'm scared. I'm scared to be ridiculed for being wrong. For,
Hmm.
I'm scared of being criticized. I'm scared of being embarrassed and shamed. What if this guy isn't the guy? What if he's not the guy? What if he isn't the guy? Now picture yourself being in law enforcement and doing this.
Hmm.
Picture yourself being a detective or some other cop, and you can't shake this embellishment. You're embellishing a person of interest to you who has now become a suspect in your mind. For whatever reason, you can't clear him, and you're not out trying to prove he's not guilty. For whatever reason, you're trying to prove he's guilty, right? So if you try to eliminate him and prove that it's not him, you know, that could settle the whole situation. But unfortunately, because of your ego, it has to be him. So you have got to come up with the evidence. But if he's not really the guy, there really isn't going to be a whole lot if there's any kind of physical evidence at all. And I have seen this a number of times with people, even in the Green River case. I mean, there were a couple people that really couldn't be eliminated or cleared towards the end going down the stretch, Gary Ridgway being one of them. But I mean, sometimes it's very, very hard to clear or eliminate somebody. However, you're better off trying to eliminate than to prove guilty, unless the evidence.
Yes.
Now you're following the evidence at the same time. So where's the evidence leading you, right? But you'd be surprised at how many times, and this can happen in law enforcement where, for whatever reason, a cop or a detective or state policeman, and I have friends of mine that have done this. They owned up to it, that they've got to stop doing it. They're embellishing. Hey, I'm embellishing now. I got it. Like they're hip to it now, right?
Yeah.
But there are situations where people have been arrested and there is no physical evidence, but now you have what's called circumstantial evidence, and maybe with that circumstantial evidence, you can take a square peg and put it into a round hole. Okay.
Hmm.
So this is something else that really, really has to be taken into consideration because, you know, I mean, if it ever got to the point where you had to go to trial over circumstantial evidence and you were prosecuted and you had to go on the stand and you're up against the detective. I mean, you're Joe Blow, working on whatever from wherever, and this guy is a fully trained law enforcement agent or whatever who's really got you in his sights and has some circumstantial evidence but doesn't really have physical evidence. I mean, you could still be found guilty. You could still
Hmm.
be found guilty because I mean, who does the jury is very, very interested in the law enforcement expert, in that detective, in that policeman. I mean, they hold rank over us in the general public. And when they're on
Yes.
the stand, they are really, really listened to. Now, of course, that this is an extreme, but I will tell you, there are people that have, you see it every day, that have gone to jail, especially in the United States, that have not committed the crime. And,
Mm.
you're seeing it more and more with the DNA coming back, okay? Where these people were not the killers, were not the culprits, spent 20 years in jail, they're being let out of jail now, okay? It just happens. This just happens. I mean, there are people I believe that are were on death row before DNA who did not commit the murder. I mean, there are people that actually got exonerated from death row that
Hmm.
were found not guilty. So it's very, very important to try and focus on what exactly you're thinking about, and can I go in the right direction with the evidence, and at the same time I'm trying to see that this guy and prove this guy not being guilty versus being guilty. Now let's jump to the civil side of this. Let's look at the professor, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about that because you have something written on that,
Oh,
right? Or do you want me to just continue with this?
you mean, yeah, just this, that if you
Yeah.
guys missed it, there's been a new update. Well, this was 20 hours ago now, but they say at this time in the investigation, detectives do not believe the female associate professor and chair of the history department at the University of Idaho suing a TikTok user for defamation is involved in this crime. So that's a new person who's just been cleared, added to the list of people that are cleared. Um, so yeah, there's this one, which is also what sparked our conversation, you guys, behind the scenes of this embellishing and just saying this is definitely the person who did it. Like, oh my goodness. And now, yeah, she's sitting with a lawsuit. The Moscow Police Department will not provide a statement about the ongoing civil process. All right.
And see, what happens is when you come out and you call, well, first of all, let me backtrack. In the United States, you can pretty much sue anyone for anything. Doesn't mean you're going to win. Doesn't mean you're going to win, but you can really sue anybody for pretty much anything, and especially slander. Okay. Like if I'm calling you a murderer or a killer, okay, I'm slandering your name. I'm
Mm-hmm.
slandering you on the internet. I mean, all kinds of people are going to see it and everything. So at that point in time, I'm open to sue. You can sue
Mm-hmm.
me. And we only need a jury of 6 when it comes to civil cases in the United States. So it can happen anyway. It can
Yeah.
happen, it can go either way. Now, even though you can sue anybody for anything, that doesn't mean you'll win. Maybe you'll lose. But who wants to go to trial? Who wants to sit through all this? Who wants to hire lawyers? Who wants
Yeah.
to hire investigators? I mean, to prove that you weren't out to slander this person. But it's pretty hard to get out of that pigeonhole if you've been calling them a murderer and you are embellishing them as a murderer. You are obsessed with them as a murderer to the point where you've come out publicly and called them a murderer of children or a murderer of women or murderer of 4 people, whatever. I mean, and
Yeah.
this is, and I beginning this suit of what of more to come. You're going to see more of this because you look at. I wouldn't allow anybody to call me a murderer on the internet on any show. I'm going to tell you that right now. I fill their house up with attorneys. I mean, I'm being honest. I fill their house up with attorneys. I'm being very honest. Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
would not allow that to take because once it's on the net, once it's on the internet, it's there forever. Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how you get it erased. I don't know. The smarter people than me know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. But I'm just telling you that, you have to take the families into concern, the shame they're going to feel and everything, and the embarrassment, the ridicule from other people in the area. And this lady came right out and said that professor's the killer, from what I understand.
Yep.
Am
With
I
tarot
correct?
cards. Yep.
With tarot cards. Well, and this is something I think you're gonna see more of that. You're gonna see more of these suits. Questions? Any questions?
So many questions. So, okay. JB Gunner said defamation is extremely hard to prove. You have to prove it hurt you financially, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And the thing of it is, when you say that it hurts you financially, who's going to give you a job if
Yeah.
if you're a possible murderer out there on the internet, right? If I mean, who's going to allow you to do this or do that? Are you going to qualify for any financial situation? So I mean, who knows what your future is going to be? Is financially, right? So maybe you have a really great future to look forward to, but this is going to stomp it down. This is going to taper it down. Certainly, there's you should be paid for some kind of pain and injury over it. I mean, there's no question about it.
And then someone was asking earlier, what if a internet personality, YouTube creator, TikToker, whoever it is, has a disclaimer or says it under a banner like it's just a theory, or it's a disclaimer, or allegedly?
Well,
What
I'm
about that?
not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. But I will just tell you one rule that we go by, and maybe this can help people out.
Yes.
Person of interest.
Mm-hmm.
All right. A person of interest, okay, is kind of some miles away from a suspect. And certainly, if you're miles away from the suspect, you're miles away from the killer, right? So this is where I like to stay, person of interest. Now, I give you some examples, and we can use Delphi. Garrett Kurtz, can he be called a person of interest? New Ron Logan's property is a killer. Did I call him a person of interest? He's a convicted killer. Can I call him a
Yeah.
person of interest? Sure, he's a killer. It's a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't he be a person of interest? Right? Talmadge Jasper. Now keep in mind, this all happened in Delphi. 2,900 people live in the town. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then to keep in mind, Talmadge Jasper, convicted of murder. Okay. Is he a person of interest? He was 3 years ahead or 4 years ahead of the girls in school or something like that. I mean,
Yep.
person of interest. He knew the area. He's a person of interest. Right. Then we have Chadwell, who was sleeping under bridges right over there, right? Was familiar with the area. Okay. I mean, they got him in time when he was choking the little girl downstairs, remember, in his house?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, could he be called a person of interest? Yeah, person of interest. Can you call a professor that hasn't acted out violently or hurt anybody, or that you can prove? Now, all these people I brought up, I can prove,
Yeah.
through the police, through their legal history, that they've committed these kinds of crimes and murders. But this
Mm-hmm.
professor, I mean, we don't have a history of violence there, right? So,
Nope.
I mean, what? Because the tarot card said, I mean, how's that going to hold up in a court of law? Can you imagine her on the stand with the tarot
She's
card?
quite confident. I looked at her TikToks today. She's very confident about what she's saying. She's like, "Bring it on, let's go." I'm like, "Oh dear."
Oh yeah, here we
Nope.
go. I mean, wait till that civil attorney gets her on the stand and with her tarot cards. I mean,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Gosh.
yeah. So I mean, when you think about it, I mean, it's there, and those are just a few people from Delphi. I mean, there were more. There were more. That were around the area or familiar with the area that had done some pretty bad things. Okay. So, I mean, there has to be some kind of history. I believe there has to be some kind of history. But if you want to keep out of it, but yet make your point, person of interest. Why do you need to go further? Why do you need to go further?
Right? Yeah. Person of interest.
Yeah,
100% killer. Not the same.
not the same.
Oh man. Okay, I just want to quickly. Oh yeah, we can talk about alibis after. So I just wrote down some questions that I don't want to miss. Like, how does one prove, for instance, an alibi that they were sleeping, that somebody was asleep? Like, how? What if there's multiple people in a case that are persons of interest, and in your process of proving them innocent rather than guilty, what if there's many of them and the alibis are like, I was sleeping?
Yeah. Okay, so you were asleep and you couldn't have committed the crime. Okay, and who? How can you prove you were asleep? Okay, so that's a good question. How can you prove you were asleep? Well, my roommate saw me go into my room and saw me go to sleep. Okay. Well, I mean, now you have a witness that you went in to go to sleep. So somebody has to disprove that witness or disprove that you really went in there, didn't go to sleep, snuck out the back window, and went out and committed the crime. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you're looking at, you know, a rough situation. Now, how can law enforcement prove that you weren't sleeping? Well, if when they get done, and this is going to be the big one, when they get done with the science, if they get done with the DNA testing and everything else, they're going to say, geez, that's pretty interesting. You were asleep. Were you sleepwalking? Because your blood is in here. You know what I mean? On this crime scene.
Yeah.
How'd that get there if you were asleep? How did
Right.
your
And
hairs end up in here? You know, so
exactly.
that so this is what you want to look at. And unfortunately, the cops got to earn their money, rightfully so. And a lot of us, okay, are just going to have to sit back, go through what we can go through, process what we can process for people of interest. But ultimately, the law enforcement's holding the cards, and you're going to have to wait for them to show their hand.
Exactly. Everyone in the chat is also saying these days people have these smart watches, Fitbits, Apple watches, whatever, and that's also a way, possibly, based on
Absolutely.
your heart rate and location, and that if they are,
Absolutely. Technology major. Your audience is
yeah,
correct. Absolutely. Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not the greatest with technology, as you know. So, these things don't pop into my head. I mean, I could say, well, if the guy is a moron and he's going to go over to kill somebody and bring his phone with him, I mean, it's going to, that's a different story. But I mean, like a watch,
right.
I great.
Here's a good question, John. Do you believe civilians should speculate why or why not?
I think civilians should speculate if they'd like to. I mean, there's such a thing as free speech too, to speculate if they'd like to in chats or among their peers or whatever. But I think speculation is important than coming out and saying that they killed the person. I mean, I just don't think there's reason to jump into the name of the person and put it out there. I don't think the name needs to be put out there. I think names can be used like hoodie guy. I mean, there are other ways. There are other ways to put things out there than to put the name out and to speculate that
Yeah.
they are a killer. Because I mean, when you look at speculation, what is the definition of speculation? Okay. Bottom line is, are you willing to leave that up to the lawyers and a jury? Are you willing to go that far? I suggest you don't, but it's up to you. Now, can you speculate with a name of Garrett Kurtz on Delphi if he killed two people? Why not? The guy's a murderer. Okay, he
Mm,
is a person of interest. He should be speculated about. But if it's somebody that doesn't have any kind of criminal histoy, you know, I mean, you got to be really, really careful. I mean, look, vast majority of people are going to end up in fights with their loved ones, but they're not going to get divorced. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And you have a lot of people that are going to turn around and they're going to have major arguments with loved ones or whatever, and they are not going to kill them. Okay. I mean, it's that simple. So, I mean, when you speculate, you got to make sure that you're doing it correctly, because I just don't see what the risk reward is of putting a name out there. I'm sorry. I just don't get the
Right.
risk reward of putting a name out.
Unless there's like 20 million jacks in a case.
Yeah, well, they're all jacked up.
We got all jacked up. Then Jack D, Jack S, Jack K. Okay.
Yeah.
But yes, very good points as well. And you guys, as you can see, law enforcement, when they have cleared people in the case, in this Idaho case, they also don't, I mean, they just call it the male. They don't even say the ex-boyfriend or Jack D. They've actually just said, we know that we are aware of a male that Kaylee and Maddie were calling. And they did eventually say, we do not believe he's involved in the crime. But yes, they say the two surviving roommates and white hoodie guy, well, they say a guy in the food truck video, more specifically, the guy wearing a white hoodie, the private party driver, any individual that was at the residence at the time the 911 call was made, the ex-boyfriend, the sixth person on the lease, and the two males that followed Kaylee, because that was that possible stalker incident.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we realize this, that no matter who the person is, and all jacked up and no place to go. That's funny. And when you're looking at this and the way the police come out with this, okay, they said that they do not have, or based on their information. Could you repeat that? It was something there's not enough to say, or based on their information, they are saying they believe this person doesn't have any involvement.
Yes. Yeah, they say, yes, we do not believe that this person is involved in the crime.
Okay. We do not believe this person is involved in the crime. Now, this stuff started coming out early, correct? And the problem I have is, okay, fine, because if it just so happens that somebody they say they do not believe is involved in the crime, and they find some DNA evidence at the crime scene, they can come back and say, hey, look, at that time, based on the information we had, you were not involved in the crime. However, based on the new information, like your blood, okay, looks like you have been involved in the crime. So, define yourself now as being uncleared. It's all words until the evidence speaks. The evidence, that they hold the cards. Cards speak for themselves. The hand will speak for itself once the hand is shown. But they can reverse any time based on physical evidence.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And someone was saying earlier, must be okay. So everybody so far named must be eliminated because they have no connection to the Elantra, but we don't know that yet either. What are your thoughts on this white Elantra? And they haven't found it yet.
I have concerns about the white Elantra. I just have concerns about it. I mean, I think it's important with the kind of full court press that they're putting on it. I think it's very, very important. I have some concerns because also what was brought out was that there was a high-end SUV that was also seen at the house. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And what is that? How come nobody else saw that?
Only the one neighbor saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is around the time of the Elantra. I don't know. I'm up in the air. I'm up in the air about it. I mean, I'm sure there's really damn good reason why they're after this Elantra. I really do not have, a whole lot of understanding about this high-end SUV, expensive car from some other state, license plates unknown.
From maybe multiple states. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no one else talked about that high-end SUV. So that's interesting. There could be another car of interest. A car of interest, or another person.
Car of interest.
Right? We just
Elantra's a car of interest for sure.
Yeah? Yep. Don't name those cars. No, I'm just kidding. You can name those cars. It's car of interest.
Yeah, name those.
This is true as well. Karen says, I find it interesting that they say Adam is cooperating rather than saying he's cleared. I also struggle to believe the white car has any relevance.
Well, I think Adam has a plethora of information, whether he knows it or he doesn't know it. Because don't forget, law enforcement usually knows more than you think they do, and he may have information that's prevalent to the case that he may not even know is prevalent to the case. Some of it I'm sure he would, but there might be a nugget here, nugget there. See, what law enforcement likes to do too is look for nuggets, because they can take a little nugget and then they can find a whole giant boulder somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, just following the trail of that nugget. So we
Mhm.
have to take that into consideration as well.
Yes.
I think Adam's a player here, a major player as far as information goes.
Right. And now, just to clarify, because you say Adam, right? So we all know based on the internet, Adam. But is it better to say, I think the guy that works at the bar, is it better not to name him, Or is it fine to say
Yeah,
Adam, but that's the last name?
It is better not to name him. And I screwed up there by putting a name on him. But it is better not to name people if you can get around doing it. Because if you talk about bartender guy or something like that, you don't need to know his name, But if you notice the way I ended the conversation too, I said is a, wealth or has a lot of information, not alluding that he did anything wrong.
Yes. And we know that also there was that surveillance footage that said, Maddie, what did you say to Adam? I told Adam everything. So at least there we got the name from the victims on the footage as well. But it's still probably better to say bar guy.
Yeah. I just would like people to think about what's their risk reward. I would just like people to think about what's their risk reward, what's their risk versus their reward with doing this. And I'd like to put this out there to you and to your audience and everything too, because the girls were partying, right? So the girls are on their way back in that video we saw. And Maddie, would you tell Adam? Now I'm going by the inflection of her tone, the inflection of her voice. Okay.
Yes.
Now, that inflection kind of led me to feel it was alarming that she had real concern of what Maddie told the bartender. Okay, let's put it like that. Okay. So, I mean, what's your feeling? What's your audience's feeling on that? I mean, does it sound like it was alarming, or is this a girl that maybe just partied a little too much and that's just the way it came out? Because after she said that, Maddie didn't say anything. Maddie didn't answer, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not that. Yeah, we didn't hear anything on that clip.
Yeah, I mean, but I see what I'm trying to figure out was it, what did you say to Adam? Or what did you say to the bartender? Excuse me, right? But on the other side of that, and it was in the video, Adam, on the other side of that is, or what did you say to Adam? Why did you say that? You got to look at the inflection there. What did you get from that? But then again, it's coming from a girl that was having a good time.
True, true. Okay, so I just quickly want to write down the time here. Guys, for you guys joining now, I see there's a lot more people that have joined. We are talking to criminal profiler John Kaylee about embellishment, and we're going to talk about the Idaho case. We're busy getting into that, but just basically how the process of elimination works, embellishment, how that can get people in trouble by saying this is 100% the killer, and all of the stuff that goes on online, the lawsuit we've seen happening recently, and all that kind of stuff. So the wisdom is much appreciated. And we're very grateful to have John Kaylee here with us, talking about this case. And we've talked about other cases before, so make sure you check that out. But so, John, if you were looking at this case, you and your S.T.A.L.K.E team, I know you can't share a lot of the profiles you might be building and thinking about and talking about, but how would you go about, if you were, let's say, regularly talking about it online, how would you go about this process of elimination and avoiding embellishing?
Well, first of all, we know we're not online much. Okay, that S.T.A.L.K.E and John Kaylee profile. It does not. We don't go online much. Okay, we only go on when we think we have something that's important. Keep in mind, our focus is to try and get tips and pass them on to law enforcement, or to try and come up with a profile that helps catch the killer. Okay, and that's our goal. Okay. The way we're going about this right now is in a very slow, methodical way, trying to see who has history, who should be eliminated, how can we prove they should be eliminated. Not easy. Not easy here. Was not easy in Delphi, but this actually is harder than in Delphi. Okay, because this, can be a real anger motivated. I mean, they're all anger motivated in some way, but we just knew in Delphi it was more sexually focused. So if you can find out, number one, the who, young girl. Number two, the how, stabbed. Okay. Now that starts to take us down another path. That opens up a path for us that we can throw a lot of different things in there. But with this case, there's just a lot. There's just a lot of DNA. Not so in Delphi. There might have been a little. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. But this case, there is a lot of science, a lot of DNA, multiple people. What I can tell you, Delphi was an outside crime scene.
Yes,
and
yes.
Within 24 hours, you can lose up to like 90% of any kind of, DNA evidence to animals and the elements. This is so compact, everything inside, everything protected from the elements. So these guys, when I say guys, I mean these law enforcement experts, that have all this to work with and all this science. They're going to come up with something because it's all contained. And if they don't come up with something, it's going to be extremely scary. I don't want to scare anybody to the point of them being really anxious, but I want people in that community up there in Idaho to have some fear, and I'm sure they do, because they need to be on their toes. Until we have some resolution here, they need to be on their toes. Now, you asked me also what else about the police or whatever, or how our S.T.A.L.K.E team would continue.
Yeah. Yes. How would you think about the case, and how would your process of elimination work based on everything you know about the case? Things like that.
Based on what I know, I'd have to really have stronger a stronger elimination protocol on anybody anybody that could have been a player. And what I mean by player is anybody that was involved that night. Because don't forget, up until that night, I mean, we had these 4 people just going along happily enjoying their lives.
Mm-hmm.
In a blink of an eye, something happened in their system. Okay. A predator appeared in their system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wasn't there the day before? They were alive.
Yep.
So that day, somebody came into their world and killed them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we have to take a look at who is new. What kind of history do they have? Somebody that's comfortable with blood? Very possible. Very
Mm-hmm.
possible. Somebody that's very comfortable with a knife? Very possible. Somebody that's using a knife as a phallic symbol? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Very possible. Or is it somebody that didn't want to make any noise and they wanted it to be done as quiet as possible? So they are very good with a gun too. But guess what? A gun is going to bring people running because you'd
Yeah.
have to have at least 4 shots, right? So maybe this is somebody that's been around that knows a little bit, and they're going to be more of an expert with the knife if it's about killing and not about using a knife as a sexual instrument. Okay, so see, you got to start,
Yeah.
pulling all this apart, right? Then, you know, you have somebody that hears a scream. Well, okay, how many people heard the scream? Okay, that has to be checked out. If it can't, I mean, how do you prove person heard a scream, not heard a scream? I mean, that's pretty. If nobody else heard one, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you'd have to have a couple of people support that, but you have to take that into consideration. You have to take into consideration somebody that saw a car, but there was no car. You have to take into concern somebody that, when I mean by that car, I mean the high end SUV. And you also have to take into consideration the Elantra, where
Mm-hmm.
it seems there's a full court press on for the Elantra that cannot be found yet.
Yep.
It cannot be found yet. So even though people think this is a long time, you and I both know
It's not.
that this is just the very beginning with
Mm-hmm.
this. Now, again, scary because if you've got some trained psycho out there or untrained psycho out there running around,
Mm-hmm.
that means people have to be on their toes. I don't want people on their toes. They need to be on their toes anyway until cops say, okay, we got them. It's all good.
Yep.
Nothing to worry about. Go about your business.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you had one other question. I thought it was a good question.
Oh, there's so many questions coming out here that you guys, I'm so sorry. You asked such great questions. The one thing that was asked, do you think, because you're saying it could be someone that's used to blood and maybe used to a knife, do you think that someone who would stab 4 people, if it is one person, even if it's 2, would have practiced before? They wouldn't just have like never picked up a knife, never dealt with blood before, and then go in there and stab 4 people. So do you think, in my opinion, that's what I'm saying, they probably wouldn't have. So, but do you think there is a chance that someone would have no experience with blood, no experience with a knife, and then go in there, stab 4 people?
No, I believe this is a person who's had experience with a knife. And I'm going to tell you something else, and you all know this, but you're going to hear it first on Grizzly True Crime. Okay. All we hear about is the stabbing. All right. Now, if you're going in to kill somebody and you don't want them to make a sound, you've got to be trained, you know, to muffle their mouth while you stab them. Or why have we not heard about slicing the throat? Why have we not heard about any cutting, any slicing? Why has it been
Mm-hmm.
stab, 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 stab? See, that bothers me.
Yeah.
Because you've got to be a professional, I believe, or you've got to know how to use a knife to know exactly where the organs are that you're stabbing, or you have a hand over their mouth. Because, I'm not hearing about any kind of slicing, and I'm sorry if this is a crude way of talking about it, but these are just the facts. I'm not, and I don't think you guys either have heard about anybody's throat being cut or anything. We're just hearing stab, stab, stab. Could he stab him in the throat? Yes. Stabbed him in the
Mm-hmm.
chest? Yes. But when we start talking about stabbing, that really gets me going, because then I start thinking about the sexual nature of the stabbing. So that leads me away more down a sexual pathway than it does towards a revenge kind of pathway. We've dealt with cases, and they're called Piqueris. We've dealt with Piqueris in the past, in various
Right.
cases. Probably the best known Piqueris is Jack the Ripper over in London. Okay. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have,
Mm-hmm.
some after him.
Another Jack.
Another Jack,
Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper. Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
Wow.
Pretty crazy. All these Jacks, boy, they're nice. Yeah. So we've had and some have been caught, some haven't been caught. Jack the Ripper was never really caught or identified.
Mm-hmm.
The Connecticut Valley Killer, it's never been caught. Ned Snellgrove has been caught. He's in a cage, wasting away up in Connecticut. So there's a number. It's really. Sometimes you just have to be patient.
Yeah. Yeah. Moral of the story, guys. Patience. Also, with what you were talking about there, the coroner did say apparently too. So it's secondhand information from Kaylee's family saying there were gouges, and Kaylee's dad said that her. Sorry to be graphic, you guys. I'm just stating facts here. That her liver and lungs were stabbed. So that was quite specific, saying liver and lungs. And then the coroner said it was like gouges, and it would have been a very strong weapon because it was like tears. So that's what we've heard so far.
Well, I'll tell you something. I think that anybody, they could by chance do that. But again, that leads me back to more of somebody that's trained, that, in the middle of the night, in the darkness,
Yeah.
you could hit the liver, you could hit the kidneys, but I think you've got a better shot of doing it when you know exactly where they are at, and knowing the anatomy of the body.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me. Look, it depends on how many stab wounds there was, and then you just get lucky. Again, you know,
True.
but if you know where vital organs are in the body and how to hit a vital organ in the body, you've been trained somewhere. You've been taught something. So I
Mm-hmm.
certainly, don't know. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and someone earlier was asking Tamara, do you believe that this offender is part of the victim's circle?
again, this is why we haven't put out a profile or anything, right? Because again, we're kind of up in the air. We're kind of waiting to see what law enforcement does. And believe me, there's not one law enforcement agent in this that does not want to catch this guy.
Yeah.
These guys want this guy bad. Okay. And don't think they don't have pressure coming from all types of directions on them, because I've seen this many, many times. God bless them. They're really up against it. But I got to tell you that it's hard to think that, because if somebody was watching them, okay, somebody was watching them, somebody knew, this is a holiday weekend. They're supposed to, a lot of people, a lot of kids are leaving and going home. How did they know they weren't going home? How did they know Ethan was there? You know what I mean? Did they think they were just coming in on 3 girls, but Ethan all of a sudden was the wild card, the X factor, the unknown factor that shook up the killer, and didn't end up dead in a bed. From what we hear, there was more of a struggle in a hall. You know, why didn't the killer go home for the weekend, or was he planning on going home? I mean, there's just so many different questions, because if it's not somebody in their circle, somebody that really knew them, then we have to believe we're looking at a peeper, a voyeurist, and that goes into the history, and where we'd be looking for somebody that may have not got arrested and convicted of voyeurism, but had a defense lawyer that pleaded it down to trespass. So lots of times they won't have voyeurism, because it's real hard when you think about it to prove somebody was peeking in your window. You said, I was on your property by mistake, but I wasn't looking in at your window. You may think I was, but I wasn't. Now you have one word against the other, going back and forth and everything. But you were definitely on the property. Right? So
Okay. Yeah.
that's where that plea deal comes in, and we'll see arrest for trespass instead of voyeurism itself. But he really was looking.
Yeah. Right. Maria says, could he have been watching them on the internet? And in that Stephen McDaniel's case, you guys that we looked at the other day, I mean, he was looking on the internet and through the windows. So it could be all of it.
Again, this is my technology IQ. I'm sorry. I absolutely, and I have it even written down here. I mean, absolutely, this guy would probably started on the internet if it was a sexual obsession with these girls. I believe then it would have moved to outside on that back hill. I mean, right through those glass doors up on top. And then all of a sudden, it wears out. The fantasy of watching wears away. And then, the old saying, look, but don't touch. Well, that's when these guys make their move and start touching. Okay. Their tolerance is built up. They need to up the game. They need to get the higher high, and they need to get up close and personal. And that's really a possibility. You see all these possibilities. I mean, it's not very easy unless you have more information to put a solid profile or a decent partial profile together.
And are you and your S.T.A.L.K. team working on a partial profile right now? Are you from everything you're learning, are you working on a profile that maybe one day you'll share?
Yes, and we're in the early stages, and we're right now it's brainstorming sessions. Like in a way, what we're having here. Why this? Why that? It was over here, down there, over here. I mean, a circle of friends where there was some guy sitting up there masturbating, watching them. I mean, we have all these. You got all these different things going around. And what do we know about him? Where was he? Because don't forget, the guy that killed these people. And remember this when you're bringing up people of interest, so you don't embellish. You got to put that person in that house killing these people.
Yep.
And again, I really believe law enforcement will be able to pick this up through the DNA. Now, if by some chance they can't, and we have a guy that was that good that he didn't leave any ounce or speck of DNA.
Yep.
I mean, we got a super predator on our hands. I will just say that.
Yep. Someone was asking earlier, thank you for that sticker. What kind of permission do the cops need to take someone's DNA if they need to match it? If they haven't been able to match DNA, if there was DNA left behind or whatever, but they need to go and eliminate persons of interest, what kind of rights do they have to take their DNA?
They have to usually go to a judge and show they have reasonable cause. Usually they have to have a reason. There has to be, an intelligent reason. And, they just can't say, well, I don't like the way it looks. I mean, they gotta have some kind of reason. There has to be, reasonable cause.
Yep. I see lots of people, they're hungry for information. Do you have all the answers? No, we don't have all the answers, you guys. We got to have patience, even though it feels like it's been forever. It really hasn't. And so, today we're talking about embellishing and the process of elimination. And John Kaylee will be back, I'm sure, talking about lots of things. And I know you're like, who do you think it is? But that's the point. I'm not saying you 100% believe that this and this one is the killer. That's the whole point of the conversation. I just see these people like, what is it? Who is it? Who's the killer? Oh dear. We don't know, unfortunately. How scary, though, that the killer is still out there.
I'm trying to figure out in my mind how some woman is going to show up on the stand. She can't wait to prove her tarot cards are right. And they revealed the professor at the college, the killer. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, she believes that the professor and Jack the X work together. So she's even saying two of them.
Well, and what does she do? Like put the cards out there, and I mean, this stuff just this stuff just blows me away. Some of these people blow me away.
Right? There's YouTube, and then you get TikTok. That's really the Wild West on the internet.
Is it really? Yeah, I've never been on. Never been on.
It's very wild. Yeah, that's really going in the trenches, guys, to see if I can dig out any information for you. TikTok. It's interesting times. Wow. You think 4chan is interesting? Wait till you get on TikTok, you guys. My goodness. Even under this, for this Idaho case. Wow. Okay. What else did I write down?
Now, another way too, a couple other ways, if somebody doesn't, and it is only a possibility, and it's a good possibility, but again, I've been there in both ways. I mean, polygraph test, you'd be surprised at, how many of these guys can pass polygraph tests. I mean, most of the time I think they can't, but you'd be surprised. That's why polygraph's not legal. It's not legal in court, it's just amazing, the different things that they do. I mean, I've seen situations where, people who were guilty were right up front. I'll give you my DNA, no problem. I don't know, you don't know. You never know you just never know. Because the one thing you must always keep in mind too, that most of these people, especially in these types of cases where you have a maniac killing 4 people, I mean, they're not all there, right? I mean, these people are pretty messed up. Yeah. And you don't know what they'll do. You don't know what they'll do. Okay, so it's very, very interesting. It's something to be very, very open-minded about it, while you're always, watching yourself and knowing your environment and keeping your eyes and ears open.
Right. And in this case, if we think about the mental health factor, if it's someone that's really off the charts, they would somewhat still have to be quite calculated, right, to pull this off. Like it seems very organized and calculated. The timing, the location, and just that they haven't been caught yet. Right?
Well, you see, I agree with that wholeheartedly because you can see some organization, you can see some structure in the deed, right? In the
Yeah.
deed. So I have to agree with that. And then you say to yourself, like the police in the beginning or people were saying, I don't know who it was saying, and I'm not saying that even the police said it, but I think they did. Such a mess. Everything was a mess, this and that, and everything else. I mean, so what is structure in a situation like this? And what is a mess? What is organization? Again,
Mhm.
not an easy answer. I mean, it looks more organized than we believe. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can see some organization there, right? I mean, obviously the guy got away. Obviously the guy knew how to enter and exit, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's quite a bit of organization and planning we think that went into this. I mean, the dog was put in a separate room from what we hear. I don't even know if that's true. I don't know how true that is.
Yeah. Law
Okay.
enforcement, they've said it on their update. So, but I have it somewhere on here where you guys have been working hard on this. I'll bring this to you in an episode soon. I was just looking at the interesting thing about Murphy, where they say they cannot confirm if he was actually in the residence at the time of the crime. I'm like, what? But
There
I
you
saw that.
go.
Yeah.
That's into that. It's up in the air. It's up there because
Right.
usually, a person that is not familiar with the house and the people in the house, if they have any inkling that there's a dog there, they really won't go near the house. They'll usually stay away from the house. I mean, how do they know the dog isn't a barker if the dog, in fact, isn't a barker? Like we hear he's not a barker, but does that mean he's not a barker? A dog doesn't bark, cat doesn't meow. I mean, I don't know. How do you play that?
Right. The cat doesn't meow. Oh man.
Dog don't
Okay. Just
bark. I mean,
I'm just trying to find this one thing that I clipped here earlier. Here we go. They say on December 5th. Okay. They talked about the timeline and they talked about Kaylee's two people that followed her into a business. Then they said Murphy was found in a room where the murder did not occur, but they say while the dog was in the house when officers arrived, it has not been determined where the dog was physically located when the murders took place. So that would just be another process of elimination of exactly where the dog even was. So there's so much. Actually, as we know, you guys, the public, we only know 5% maybe of what's going on in the case. That's the one thing I always remind us all of. We actually know so little. The little bit we have seems like a lot, but it's actually quite little, huh? Right.
If we know 5%, I mean, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Do you ever get information yourself when you guys are building a profile from law enforcement, or do you have to also, like all of us, rely on what law enforcement is releasing and just public information?
Well, if we're working with law enforcement, the books are open to us. Okay, if that happens, we haven't done that in a while. If we're not working with law enforcement, then we are usually setting up a situation where people can call in and leave tips. We do not have that situation here. We did it in Delphi. We were able to get all the tips over to law enforcement. I have to tell you, none of them had Mr. Allen's name in it. Okay. But we did come across some tips that were solid. I mean, some people like to go to law enforcement. Some people, for whatever reason, I mentioned this before, don't go. But again, if you know exactly the how and the why, okay, well, in this case we know the how. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know the why. Do we have that nailed down? Do we
No.
have that nailed down? Because without that, I mean, without a solid why, how do you know what direction to go in?
Mm-hmm.
How do you
Mm-hmm.
find the who without the why?
The
Yeah,
question of the day, you
yeah,
guys.
it's not easy.
Why? And there can be so many whys right now when we only know 5% of what's really going on that law enforcement might know. Exactly. Carolina Girl, we discussed this at length in a previous episode where John Kelly was on the show. So I hope you go check that out. We talked about how they would behave after the crime. Also, before I forget, do you think that this person could have suffered with obsessive compulsive disorder based on the 1122 1122? So November 2022, the house 1122, and there's one victim at the bottom, 1 1, as in one unharmed, 1 1, and then 2 2. That's some sort of a numerical pattern that I get asked about a lot. So do you think it could be? Have you dealt with profiles and killers that could suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder and other things?
Well, again, something I don't know if was ever talked about. I know it hasn't been talked about much, but it's going to come out on Grizzly True Crime now. Um, you know, with mass murderers, I do not know exactly what the percentages are with obsessive compulsive behavior. Okay. However, I will tell you, and Dr. Eddie is, really nailed this down that as far as serial killers go, I don't think we found a one that doesn't suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder behavior.
Interesting.
And all serial killers we've come across.
And of course, if people suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder, and if it's the killer profiles you're looking at, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a signature of the numbers. It's just interesting that it was the month 11, 2022, 11/22, the house 1122, and then it's just interesting that it's 1122, like the people. So it could be, it's interesting to think about, but it might not be, because not all of them would have those numerical patterns of thinking.
Right, that those tendencies, and and that's a good point to bring out. And you really nail that pretty good because you got the jacks, the jacks, the jacks. We got the 13s, the 13s, the 13s, right? And now we
Yeah.
got the others. I mean, so you've got a good mind for that. So that helps because we don't know. We don't know if some guy's driving up the road there and something flicked them off. I mean, I can't say 1,000% proof possible that he didn't see some address that it bugged them out for some reason. He ran in and killed everybody. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I got an account that jumped up on the roof of a casino, a millionaire account that jumped up on the roof of a casino or in a room, top room, penthouse in a casino, and killed what, 55 people or something. I mean,
Mm.
I don't know why, you don't know why people do what they do. It's just human behavior. It's mental illness. It's violent psychological thoughts.
Yes.
I mean, you know, I see that. That's an interesting one. Do I think this is the perpetrator's first kill? That's a really, really good question. Um, I'd have to, I'd have to put, see, even here, I'd have to put this in two different situations. If it's a sexual thing, no, that was not his first.
Hmm.
If it's not a sexual thing, if it's just somebody going over the deep end that had, some kind of, explosive disorder take off in them and became really impulsive with anger and rage, could be. What also could lead me to that too is lots of times the age of the perp, lots of times, not all the time, but lots of times the age of the perp is around the age of the victim. And usually by the time people really start cooking, although this is changing too with mass murders, used to be between 25 and 35 for serials, probably between 2019 now, and when you start to see some budding, or I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. They're getting younger and younger all the time.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Sorry if I missed some questions from earlier, you guys. I tried to remember all the ones and write them all down, but you all have such great questions, and I'm very grateful that you're here. Remember, please to like the video and share it so others know that we are here as well. Let's see what else you got. Yeah, so many wires, says Nancy. So many wires. Yep. Embellishment. Embellishment by numerology. What? Okay. So, what have we not discussed that we still wanted to? I just quickly want to see this. Did you read about, was it this incident? Yes, this incident, it's still interesting because here they talked about, and I'm not trying to throw a conspiracy out there, you guys, this is from the Moscow PD, right? They were investigating an incident, and it's the only one that they really took and really investigated big time, where two young women left the residence on Blaine Street around 5:15 p.m. this evening. They say that was November 22nd. They went towards their car, where they spotted a man in the front seat who proceeded to exit and chase them. They ran towards friends and called the police, after which the man fled. When police arrived, he could not be found. Remain vigilant. Description is limited. An overweight white male in a yellow shirt with dirty blonde to brown hair and a scruffy beard. This just went by, It's just interesting because they say police have checked the area. Officers contacted a male matching the description, but learned that he had a friend that had just returned home from a restaurant. And the male approached the sisters to help. The male withdrew and waited to talk with officers when accused of being involved. And based on their knowledge at the time, they say the incident was unfounded and they explained why, but it's still just interesting. That's what, the reason I bring this up is because with this process of elimination, there's so many things that happen along the way, and we all got to pay attention to what law enforcement's saying. Like, who do they bring up? What are they looking at? What are they highlighting? Of course, still right now is the white Elantra, which has not been found. Amazing. A missing car.
I think that's amazing that hasn't been found yet. And also,
well, the weapon.
The weapon, he can have that at home and be obsessing over that, fantasizing over that. We don't know. I mean, that's like a part. That's like a body part to him. Could be. Could be. I mean, we don't know. But getting back to the whys, I think the whys are like where the power is. The power is in the question. The power is in the question. That's how the more questions, the more answers. That's why we all get together and we brainstorm. That's what takes place on your channel. You got all these, good thinking, true crime people putting their heads together. I mean, this is the best way. One head's better, two heads are better than one, and three heads are better than two, and so on. I mean, it's really can add up. The brain power can really add up.
Yes. And according to your partial profile, do you believe it's a male, or do you think there's a chance at this point? Because last time we talked, we also asked this that it could be a female.
No, I do not believe it could be a female. I do not believe it could be a female. I think this person was overpowering. And, I keep going back to Ethan. God bless him. And God bless all the families. So I want to give my deepest condolences again to the families and friends. I know I did it before, but I can't say it enough from me and from our S.T.A.L.K.E team. But you go back to Ethan and you take a look at Ethan. I mean, Ethan was in shape.
And tall, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Ethan was an athlete, tall dude.
Mm-hmm.
Got overpowered.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. A tall, and unless of course fast asleep, but still, with Ethan and Xana in one room to still overpower Ethan. So that is your reasoning for why you believe it's not a female.
Yeah, and plus then Xena got a couple of licks in, right? I mean, she got, supposedly didn't go easily. She put up a struggle,
Yeah.
And so I have a hard time believing a woman was able to to pull that off. I mean, we don't even know if Ethan and Xena were drinking.
Yeah, we don't know. We just know they went to that Sigma Chi party from 8 to 9. But still, don't you find that's the biggest mystery? The what the heck in the case is what happened between 9 and 1:45 for Ethan and Xana? What were they doing?
What were they doing?
Where were they? Because the way that I've been reading, you guys, I started at the beginning today. Everything Moscow PD's ever put out. Sometimes I do that. I told you guys I go back to the beginning, watch the whole case file, watch all the press conferences, and see what did I miss? What can we learn and hear there? But they were saying the way they kind of worded is that they went to the party and they got home at 1:45. So they don't say necessarily they left the party at 9. They just know they were at the party from around 8 to 9. But we don't know if they stayed at the Sigma Chi fraternity, if they went somewhere else. That's a huge timeline gap with 2 out of the 4 victims.
Major gap. And, I'll tell you the one question I would like answered. And, if anybody in your audience can nail this down, would be great. We keep talking about the driver that picked them up at the food truck from the bar. From the bar, they went to the food truck. Driver picked them up at the food truck, took them home. The cops, I guess, interviewed the driver that picked them up at the food truck. I think his answer was nothing unremarkable, with them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But who is the one that took them to the bar? That's the one where is that guy? Who is that guy?
Is it the same one? We don't know because it's a designated sorority driver. That's what Katie's dad said that collected them from the food truck. But yes, at 10 p.m., it was 10:15 p.m. Katie's sister said they were picked up. They were picked up and taken to the corner club. So yes, who took them? Even that we don't know.
Yeah, that's a question I'd like answered. Who was the one that took them to that? How'd they get to that bar?
Yeah.
That's it. That's a question that needs to be answered.
Yep, we know someone drove them there, but we don't know exactly who. Have you seen the picture that was released yesterday, leaked on the internet of the? I'll show you quickly here. This one. This is a picture leaked from the corner club.
Yeah.
So that's what.
Very, very interesting.
Yes. I just want to see if law enforcement said something. Yeah, they talk about, they say there have been many, this is today's update as well, you guys. They say there have been numerous inquiries from members of the public and media to verify digital media published online. Any picture or video provided through the official public records request process is authentic. So that would be all the body cam footage and things that are now coming out. But they say, however, once a record is released, we can no longer verify its authenticity as we do not know if anything has been altered. Detectives are aware of videos distributed by local businesses. So there's rumor that some bagel shop has released some footage. I haven't seen any of that. And of course, they also mean with the body cam footage and things, like if you guys saw it on my channel, I just took clips to show you highlights from it. So that's also what they mean. It's not just like exactly how it happened. But some people are releasing it exactly like the whole thing, whether it's an hour or 20 minutes or however long it is. But there's a lot of talk going on about this picture. It's from the corner club. Yesterday, I looked at the inside of the corner club as well. It's concrete floors and the door matches and the pictures and everything. So it's from the corner club. Camera 3, 1:32 a.m. Now, if we look at it, we can see what appears to be a white hoodie guy with his cap backwards right there near the door, which means he was probably not kicked out.
That was my next question. He's there at that point. Was he ever kicked out after that?
Yeah, and we were chatting once behind the scenes, I think. I don't think we said this on a show, but was he kicked out a week before, 2 weeks before on that night, based on that rumor that went around online? But here he's standing right here, and it looks like the barman, which they may have referred to in the surveillance footage, is in the corner. And then the guy next to him, people are speculating that's a police officer, but I think it's the owner of the bar or another dude. Yes, and the 2 girls, everybody's going on about that because they say it looks like the ex-boyfriend, which I'll zoom in a little bit more. We'll look at this again quickly. But yeah, all these pieces of information coming out, but yet we still don't know. We know a lot now about, but still not enough, not much about what Kaylee and Maddie did that night. going to the corner club, but who drove them there? What all did they do there? Who did they meet there? You know? And then walking with white hoodie guy to the food truck. Okay, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, I
go forward.
can't. I can't really make out who that person is there. They're talking to.
So this would help with your embellishment talk of like, if we see this, I mean, it looks like it could be the ex-boyfriend. It could be, but do we know it for sure? No, and we can't state it as such. We don't know 100%. Sure, white shoes, but a lot of people got white shoes. The cap does seem similar, but we don't know 100%, but it does seem plausibly. So how do you think this helps the investigation at all? Because in my opinion, I don't think it does, because we know they were at the corner club. All we can see, though, is that the guy that they said was kicked out seems to not be kicked out.
Well, again, what's the risk reward? You have to ask yourself by saying it's somebody, if you don't know for sure it's them. You could say, in theory, well, looks like somebody, but you want to even go out there on a theory? I mean, but even if it's a guy that they're talking to there, does not make him a killer.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I don't see any reason. I don't see any reason at all for that. I'm concerned about this rumor that Jack got thrown out of there. Hoodie guy got thrown out of there. I mean, that's a rumor that's been floating around forever, that he got thrown out of there that night. But obviously, he's right there.
Yeah. Yep.
So what about that? See, this again is where it comes down to waiting for law enforcement to show their hand and nail some of this stuff down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So even with this timeline, if we look at this, okay, sorry, I don't want to miss this one comment. PT Nonoman said, even more important than the picture might be who leaked that photo and why, because it's leaked. Somebody leaked a picture of the surveillance from the corner club, put it out there. So they say who leaked it and why. Very interesting. But also, who started the rumor of Jack being kicked out? Also interesting. Imagine if it comes from the same person. We don't know. But what's interesting here as well with Xana and Ethan and the mystery of their whole timeline is that allegedly there was a ball called Betty's Ball. And I believe it was on the Saturday, that same Saturday, where Maddie and Kaylee gone to the corner club.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the exact time it started or how long Ethan was there, but Ethan went with his siblings. So he went with his sister, and his brother took the sister's roommate. So Xana wasn't there, but even there's so much that could be learned even from that party, that whole night, the ball, Betty's Ball.
Mm-hmm.
And Saturday was also game day. There could be so many persons of interest they could come across, at game day if they did all go, because we don't know what the hell they did on the whole of Saturday either, before the evening activities.
Well, that's an excellent point, because anybody that they came across anywhere, any place, could possibly be a person of interest. See, this is, I mean, and I say possibly a person of interest, right?
Yes.
So that can be miles and miles and miles and miles away from anything. You know what I mean? Yeah. But you don't know. As we talked about, we were going to talk about the other day, and someday we'll get back to that and do it. The system, something changed in their system that day. These kids were enjoying life, loving life, having a good time. Kaylee's down there showing off her car, right? She's getting ready to leave for Texas. Okay. I mean, they're just getting ready to have a blast, have a ball, right? Mm-hmm. And something came in, some predator, something happened in their system. A predator came into their system, and it changed the whole system, and they're dead. The girls that made 10 phone calls to a specific number in a matter of short time are dead. I mean, there's just so many questions here, that need to be answered, and there's no answers yet.
Exactly. So that's why we be patient and we see what law enforcement says and what still unfolds. And it is still early days, as long as even though we all feel like it's been forever, it's still
Yeah,
early days.
it makes it feel like it's forever, but you and I both know from Delphi, and you came in there a little late. I mean, I was there for like three and
Just a
a half
tad late.
years.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something. I mean, it can go on and it can take a while. This is a very, very short period of time to catch a killer, to catch a mass murder like this. This is a very, not a lot of time has gone by. It's early. It's very, very early in the game. And I think we're going to have to wait and be patient, and we're going to have to see. And, we're going to have to, and don't be surprised if we are surprised, because we got surprised in Delphi. I mean, they had like, I don't know, 40,000 tips, 50,000, 100,000 tips. I don't know how many tips they had. I never heard of Richard Allen in my life, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Hmm.
I mean, you know, this stuff, and like I said, I've seen this before, comes out of left field, you know.
Right. Exactly. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your comments there. I wanted to ask you. Oh yeah, you keep saying change in the system, which I did elaborate on in a previous episode. But that was the time when the cyclone happened
Mm.
to you. I was here in the Netherlands with Plan B activated. We talked about the Villisca Axe Murders, you guys. So I will bring that up in a moment. I know we've been here for quite a while, 90 minutes, but let's go for a little bit more. And then of course, I'll just get highlights and things for someone who doesn't have the time to watch all of this. So don't worry, everyone. If you can't be here for the whole thing, there will be highlights later. So the Villisca Axe Murders we were looking at. But the change in the system, what does that mean exactly? And when you say there was a change in the system because they were all living their lives happy, partying, then there was a change. So what do you look at in a change in the system and how long before the murders happened?
Well, there can be various changes in the system, but usually major change in the system is when somebody new enters your system. In other words, somebody new enters your world. Now, I'm going to give you a really classic definition of this that I think you can all understand. All of you that have been working and worked at different institutions, once you hear, oh, they're going to change Bob, they're taking Bob out of management and they're putting this new guy in, and I heard he's pretty rough, or Ellen is being transferred out and we're not going to have her here anymore, or Mark is quitting, he's not coming back, he's had enough, and we're getting this new vice president, and I don't know anything about him. In any job, in any system, a system will resent change. Systems do not like change. Okay. I would, you know, um, go to you and say, Gisela, when you were flying airplanes and you guys had your systems all set up and who was doing this and who was doing that and everything else, I mean, what was it like if somebody new was coming in, right, that you hadn't worked with or whatever, right? I mean, did you
Hmm.
have any kind of anticipation or anything? Systems usually generate, maybe in the airline business, nothing like that because everybody's so, you know, trained. But I mean, in normal, workflow systems, I mean, any kind of change to personnel or people in general will create some kind of anxiety or some kind of stress to the system. Now the system doesn't like that. So I have to believe these guys had their system where they did things a certain way, certain times of the day, in the evenings. Um, there was just certain routines that
Hmm.
they had, right? And then all of a sudden, something got disrupted. I mean, somewhere along the line, there was a disruption. Was it? with Ethan and his girlfriend over at the fraternity house? Was there anything that changed there? With the girls at the bar, was there anything that changed? With the girls at the food truck, was there anything that changed? Okay. In the neighborhood, the neighborhood probably had a routine where parties took place certain times of the week, certain houses or whatever. Was there any changes there? Was anything abnormal in the area at that time? Was there somebody in that neighborhood that shouldn't have been in that neighborhood?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where were there any additions in that particular environment or neighborhood that normally weren't there? Because everything seemed to be fine. And then all of a sudden, some psychopathic maniac killer got dropped into that neighborhood and ended up in that house.
Mm-hmm.
What caused that? Where was the change in the system? Was this a new guy coming in? Was it an old guy going off the rails that they knew? They were used to. I mean, I don't. But the system changed, and unfortunately, it changed in a horrific, bloody way.
It did. And when we were chatting, that's what I presented to everyone, the change in the system. If we look also at the victimology, well, yeah, the biggest changes in the system were definitely for Kaylee, moving, new job, new car, moving into that house in June-ish or so. All of that was quite a change in the system of the friendship circle as well. And
absolutely,
the breakup.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
So all of that, an anomaly, yes. And yeah, to answer your question, not that it was much of a question, you were just saying, but like with the flying, yeah, we flew with someone different every flight. So the only change in the system would be the actual aircraft system. We don't want changes there. We look for those, but with each other, oh my gosh, it was like two new people every time.
Interesting.
Hardly ever did I fly with the same person in my entire career.
Really? That's interesting to me. That's news.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah. Well, in South Africa, at least. Maybe in America, it's different. Yes. Oh, motive, passion, anger, revenge. Interesting. Yeah. Could be. Wow. So, for instance, earlier someone was saying, ooh, can we do a poll where we put all the names of people and say who we think the killer is? That, according to embellishment, is probably a no-no. Unless, is it correct to do that? If one were to do a poll like that, could you say white hoodie guy, a neighbor, ex-boyfriend, someone else?
I don't think there'd be anything wrong at all with that. I mean, you're not specifically calling somebody a murderer. I mean, I don't know. You're not coming out and slandering someone's name. I can't. I don't see what's wrong with it. But again, I'm not a lawyer. I know that other people do polls. I don't know how they word the poll or what the poll's about. And I'm not saying specifically.
Who is 100% the killer?
Yeah.
That would be a great illegal poll.
Well, I mean, I think, you certainly, I would suggest not using names. I mean, I mean, there was various people at the food truck with hoods on and this and that. I mean, I'm just saying that I can't see how, with caps on and stuff and everything. I think this is, and it's a poll. Whoever came up with that, that's a really good question. I'm no lawyer, but I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, go rooting around the world for, 100 people that voted on a poll or something. And I'm not saying this is right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying there's such a thing as free speech too. And, everybody's doing polling all the time. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't want to lead people one way or the other.
It's all good. That was a good answer. So I don't want to miss this because I almost forgot about it. You guys, last time, if you missed this episode, go check out the episode I did on the Villisca Axe Murders. It was also a live stream. But what I want to ask Mr. Kelly about here is the killer's behavior. Well, this guy was acquitted. The person of interest, who was acquitted twice, the behavior afterwards was very interesting. Writing letters to the police, to the families. Let's see, sending obscene material through the mail. This is the case from 1912, you guys, but very interesting nonetheless. This guy went in and murdered 8 people with an axe in their beds, asleep. 2 adults, 6 children. But then, as I say, the person that they arrested and was acquitted twice was actually Reverend Kelly. John Kelly, talking about Reverend Kelly over here.
Hope he's not related.
And so the thing is, so he was a drunkard, a peeping Tom. He had a temper. He was a reverend in the local church. And as we saw with the Delphi case, Richard Allen was also like worked at CVS, very helpful guy, as you say, visual, all of that. Here is again someone that people looked up to and all of that. He'd suffered a mental breakdown as an adolescent and all of that. Okay. He left. So this is the thing. He left town for a bit. And then he talked about the murders to strangers on the train. But that's before the bodies were even found. So in the Idaho case, do you also think that the killer or killers could have, well, they haven't caught them, so we don't know if they're in the community. In your opinion, do you think they're like laying low in the community and trying to just act normal? Or do you think there could be a chance that they've driven off somewhere, gone back to where they came from? Because you say that flight could indicate guilt.
Flight definitely can be a sign of guilt. And I believe wherever they're at, they are laying low. There's still enough media publicity out there, unless they're completely deranged. And this does look like a completely deranged person, but still in all, I would think, knowing the paranoid complex a lot of these guys have, that they are scared, they are staying low. They're probably watching us now. They're trying to get all the information they can to see how close cops are to them. That's why another reason for the cops keeping things close to the vest, because these guys are always looking. You wait till we see what comes out there with Delphi. I mean, these guys look under every nook and cranny for any ounce of information they can, because they do not want to get arrested and they do not want to get put in a cage. Okay. And so I think laying low, again, if we're dealing with somebody and it's mentally ill, I mean, really, really like paranoid schizophrenic or something like that, or which I doubt, but you never know, or somebody that's really abusing a lot of substance. I mean, that can be a horse of a whole other color. I mean, they could go off at any time if they're still abusing substance, or they have severe mental pathology. But I think for my money right now, seeing a little bit of the organization, everything, they will be laying low. They don't want to draw any people to them. They want to just kind of stay under the radar right now.
And
so
to those who know him, will they see a change in behavior? In your
they
opinion?
should see some change, maybe. See, in Delphi, we saw it in appearance. I would think if they're capable of changing something with their behavior is really not easy to change. It's a lot easier to change your looks than it is your behavior. And I don't know. We'd probably be seeing somebody that would be more obsessed with the case, okay, and other people, especially since it's we do see it on cable and stuff, but I don't see it as much as I did in the beginning. Okay, on the major medias. But they'd be looking at every nook and cranny, like I said, for information on the case. I think they could, depending on their emotional status, I mean, they could become depressed. They could become more anxious. And of course, if they're a psychopath, they could be not bothered at all and be out somewhere eating lunch. I mean, it's it's hard to tell. I think for the most part, they're staying low. They're staying low. I can't. I mean, again, we don't have enough information. It's really hard to tell on the behavior. It's really hard to tell on the behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, if I saw more of a sexual angle, I could talk more about it. If I had more information on a revenge type angle, I could talk more about it. Definitely, if they were part of their inner circle or part of their circle at all, they would seem concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not. These are their supposed friends that were killed. They're not going to act like they're blowing them off in any way.
Exactly.
Tough
Lieutenant
question.
Peter Pranzo in the chat says law enforcement never releases more than 10% of what they know to the public and nothing in regards to evidence collected. Good reminder, you guys. Keep it in mind. We think we know a lot on the internet. We don't. we really don't. We're trying to figure it out. And everybody's curiosity, fear, concern, everything is peaked. Empathy for the family. But yeah, we don't know more than 10% of what law enforcement knows. So, sorry, I just wanted to not forget that one. I wanted to say if it is a sexually motivated crime, what's interesting in this Villisca Axe Murders that we're going to discuss at the time, right, was that this guy who was acquitted, I remind you guys again, but he was the primary suspect. It was one juror that said they do not believe he's guilty, and the 11 said he was, and that's why he was acquitted. But anyway, he continued with his sexual behavior because, as you've said, these types, they don't stop. It's like it pesters even them. And so what he did was, after the murders, sent obscene material to women and was harassing women and exposing himself to women, all of that kind of stuff. So if this is a sexually motivated crime, that would possibly still continue, right, for the killer in the Idaho case.
Yeah, it would definitely be his drug of choice. Okay, I mean, he'd continue to go on and continue in his ways to get his stimulation to act in a forbidden way. It's to stimulate the forbidden is very stimulating. And for a lot of these guys, it's so addicting because, believe it or not, it's soothing. It's soothing. It's like a paradox effect. I mean, it brings down their anxiety or whatever. So he'd continue to taunt, to take chances, the stimulation of the game,
Yep.
playing the game.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, did you see that comment? In reality, we know jack all very little. Jack all, you guys. Yep. This one, I just want to address this one more time, like a comment like this saying not sexually motivated. The thing is, as you've said, sometimes with a knife, particularly stabbings, that's quite an intimate weapon to use. And sometimes they see it as an extension of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they say there's no sign of SA, it could still be sexually motivated based on the choice of weapon and piercing people's bodies like they did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It could be. We we don't know enough because I'm not hearing about slashing or cutting. I'm hearing about stabbing all the time, and
Yes.
that's upsetting. It's upsetting, to hear that. That somebody would get their kink and get off sexually, to stabbing another person. I mean, like I said, I ran into this before. A couple other cases we had were Piquerism, and it was kind of like, what, who are they? I mean, it's like, what do they do? I mean, it's like pretty up. It's pretty nasty stuff, but to each his own, and we know people, especially with this deviant psychopathology. I mean, you never know. You just don't know.
Yeah. I'm looking at this pickerisk because people were saying earlier, wow, new word. Okay. Piquerism is a sexual interest in penetrating the skin of another person with sharp objects. Piquerism, you guys. Piquerism. We're learning here from John. You got your Grizzly notebooks? Are you writing that down? I'm going to put the word in the chat in case you didn't know about it. Piquerism, like this. Piquerist. Wow. Interesting. Could be that. Yes. Okay. So with limited energy, you guys left. I'm sure all of us, we're all like, my word, there was a lot. My brain starts feeling like, damn, we've learned so much here. And don't worry, John Kelly will be back. And definitely, I hope he'll be back when they catch this killer. When they put the killer in the cage.
Oh, for sure. Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss it for the world. And you're right. When they catch him, because he's going to get caught.
Oh, yeah. Go into the cage, right?
Yeah. He's going to get caught. There's no question about it.
Everybody find your book. Yep, he's going to be in a cage, you guys, and then we'll have that discussion and be like, wow, we'll see the debrief, which I look forward to as well. Any other thoughts before I show everyone your book and everything? This is true, Janet. Yes. Do you have anything that we missed that you still wanted to discuss?
No. I think we covered quite a bit.
Let's do I love bullet points. Let's do a bullet point summary on embellishment, what to do, what not to do. So when people talk about cases online, because this could be helpful to the true crime community, what should they not do? What does embellishment mean? What should they not do? Like bullet points if you can.
Yeah, I would be very careful of being obsessed and letting your ego get the best of you and mentioning names and calling somebody a murderer without before law enforcement does. You're really asking for trouble. I mean, again, we don't know. We have no idea at this point in time, us personally, who exactly, proof positive, is the killer, unless we have tarot cards. Okay. I mean, and I'm only kidding there, of course, right? But nobody really knows. You got to wait for law enforcement to call somebody a killer and to arrest somebody before you even get in that direction. What's the risk reward? Is what I'm going to ask. What is the risk reward? I mean, because you can end up feeling pretty bad about yourself and ending up on the wrong end of a lawsuit and everything else. I mean, like I said, it's you got to try to eliminate people, people of interest if you want to, because you're not going out there to call them a killer to say they're guilty. You're trying to say they're innocent. You're trying to eliminate them. Right?
Yes, I like that way of thinking as well. Try to prove that they're innocent instead of trying to prove that they're guilty.
Because if they are guilty, you will not be able to prove they're innocent. The case will only get better. That's what really, really your good seasoned detectives do. And I don't put myself in that category. I know about this. I know how to do this, but I'm a profiler and a psychotherapist. I'm not a detective. My friends are the detectives, and my colleagues.
Yes. Okay. So Davey says, great live. Learned so much tonight. Thank you, you guys. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We love having John Kelly on the show. This is your book, Discovering Lazarus. You've written other books as well. So this one, you guys, if you want to get it, it's on Amazon. I'll make sure to link it in the pinned comments below afterwards with timestamps. What are your other book titles? So if anyone wants to look and they look for your name, Discovering Lazarus, John Kelly with Jenny Grace.
Well, the way Lazarus, Discovering Lazarus is my most recent book, and I wrote that because I wanted to put the good, the bad, and the ugly of John Kelly out there. Okay, I'm a recovering addict and recovering for decades, and but that's how I started off. That's how I got in the field. I started doing volunteer work. I became a counselor. I became a psychotherapist, and then I became a profiler. And what led me into all of this was my theory, which is in my other book, Warning Signs, a guidebook for parents. I wrote it over 20 years ago. And my focus was on low self-esteem, centered around insecurity, inferiority, inadequacy, those different emotional dynamics, that they are the center of society's woes based on child abuse. And that's what led me into serial killers. That's what got me researching serial killers. And I got to meet a couple of your friends. You've written books about Mr. John Gacy. Yes, that's how I ended up corresponding with John Gacy. You wrote a book on Henry Lee Lucas, correct? Or no?
No, only Gacy, Bundy, Dahmer, and Eileen Wuornos.
Okay. Well, you know about Lucas, and that's how I got to meet Lucas up close and personal, because I was interviewing them. I wanted to find out what created the beast. I wanted to get down to the root cause. I wanted to get down to the root cause, which I thought was the root cause. And I still believe that child abuse, which can cause inferiority, inadequacy, or insecurity early on, post-traumatic stress, and low self-esteem, and a feeling of being worthless and powerless. And that's why these people are out to get more power, and it just explodes, with their narcissistic thinking and behavior, and they don't feel good enough to be, to be around a woman, or can't have a relationship well, so they have to physically and lots of times sexually control and dominate a woman. So that, all of that's what led me where I am. But
yes,
Discovering Lazarus is the good, the bad, the ugly of John Kelly, and how he ended up where I'm at. And I just can't thank all your audience for how, all the kind words, buying the books purchased. I can't thank you enough for having me on and plugging me the way you do. And I give you so much credit, because really you're a shining and shooting star. You're just taking off. Like I said, I've been around a little bit longer than you would, just on the YouTube thing, but I've never seen anybody take off as quickly as you have. And it's really because of your commitment and concern and care for your audience. I truly believe that. And of course, the comprehensive approach you take to cases.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's an honor hearing that from you.
Thank you.
Getting the big thumbs up here from John Kelly, you guys. It's very nice. Yeah, pick 2 of them. Yes. Oh, let me show them your channel again, just so they can go and subscribe over there. This is John Kelly's YouTube channel, John Kelly Profiler. I think Nightbot's been doing a good job of sharing it throughout the stream. I hope so. Otherwise, don't worry. I'll share it afterwards in the pinned comments. The book, Discovering Lazarus, website is johnkellellc.com. Have you got any upcoming videos, webinars, courses, anything happening with you and your team, or you guys just brainstorming away?
We're just brainstorming away. Right now, today, there's no upcoming videos. I want to be totally, upfront with your audience. I so appreciate them coming over and subscribing. I love them. I will treat them with all the respect in the world. They know that. Anybody that's dealt with me knows that in comments. But right now, I have to have some meat. There has to be some meat for me. Because again, we want to figure out how to catch this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's the thing that's going through my mind. I mean, if there was some real meat here and can you imagine what all the YouTubers out there in true crime, my God, coming together, I mean, if they had some real meat to grab hold on here, and some real evidence, I'm calling evidence meat, but, this is, this could go a long way because, the collective energy, with the brain power is just so much more than one or two people. That's why when we profile in a group. One man alone is not a profiler. I mean, okay, we all have different, protocols and dynamics that we're familiar with. But the bottom line is, again, two heads are better than one, and three heads are better than two, and so on. That's how it goes. And
Yes.
you've got such a great bunch there with the Grizzlies. I'm sure you guys will, as soon as you get more information, will be having, some hits, and we'll see where it all goes. Just protect yourselves. Protect yourselves. You don't need somebody sending you a subpoena. You don't need to get a subpoena in the mail. Protect yourself.
Yes. Exactly, everyone. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. If there's any breaking news in this case, or if they, of course, catch the perp, I mean, damn, we'd love to pick John Kelly's brain.
Yeah, and I'll be watching you. Because I watch all the time. So yeah, you report anything, and I'm not bashful, as you know. I'll email you and say, hey, let's talk about this. Wow, look what you did.
Yes.
Look what you found here. So that's where we're at. Thank you again so much for having me. I can't thank you all enough. You and your audience are great. You always are. Truly appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you everyone for all your questions and comments. I'm sorry that I didn't even get to half the questions. You always ask such great questions, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. If you're brand new here, I hope that you have subscribed. Even if you're shy and you're lurking, just hit the subscribe. It's free, so that you know when I'm next uploading, going live or whatever. You don't want to miss the next ones. If you're on Patreon as well, you get better notifications there. I'll make sure to share the live streams over there as well. So if you want to head over there and join us there, that'll be great too. Other than that, thank you.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. The only way we'll see you probably here together before the New Year is if there's breaking news.
Oh, breaking news. Well,
if they catch the guy, we'll be here talking about it, I'm sure.
I tell you, I will be, from your lips to God's ears, I mean, I will be the happiest person in the world.
Right? Nice. Thank you, Grizzly, for naming me your most favorite cheddar of all time.
Whoa. There you go.
Putting words in my mouth. Nut butt. Love that word. Nut butt. Write that down, everyone. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mods. Really appreciate it. And don't worry, you guys. If you only caught the tail end of this and you're like, oh, man, I don't have 2 hours to watch this, I'm going to make sure I do a highlights episode for everyone to rewatch all those very cool points of the show. So without further ado, I'm going to play my outro and then chat to John Kelly a little bit behind the scenes before it's mealtime for both of us in different parts of the week.
Yeah. We'll get a little, what do you call it? We move back, flaky. No, what do we get? We get little, what do you get when you get a little
dizzy? A little.
No, there's something the words you use on there, like you're flaming, you're.
I don't remember what it is.
What it is. I don't know what it is. Your fans know what it is. You mention it a lot.
We waffle too much at the end.
Waffling. There it is.
We start waffling too much, you guys. Okay, so we're going to go. Thank you, Mods. Thank you, everyone. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you.